Thank you, Chairman Krishnamurthy. I would like to thank all our witnesses for being here today. No one should ever have to be employed in a toxic work environment. More importantly, sexual harassment is a behavior that our society has determined is antithetical to a professional work environment. No one should ever have to face that either at work or elsewhere. And I appreciate the courage it took to tell your stories, and I hope you're able to find peace and healing. While I appreciate the opportunity to hear these stories, I would remind the majority that sexual harassment has been illegal for decades and that Congress is not the proper forum for legal relief. We are legislative in nature, and this hearing should be held in a courtroom, not in this committee room. It seems like this committee, the Committee on Oversight and Reform, enjoys holding hearings on issues over which we have no jurisdiction. As I said before, I will say again, this committee used to be named the Committee on Government Oversight and Reform, and when the majority chose to remove government from this committee's title, it should have been a giant red flag that House Democrats believe their authorities go beyond the four corners of the Constitution and the jurisdiction and charter of this committee. This committee needs to refocus its priorities on investigating government operations, not the dealings of private companies and organizations. When private companies or individuals break the law, bringing them to justice is the responsibility of the executive branch. But perhaps that is why this executive branch issue is being highlighted in the legislative branch. This must be a signal to the nation that the executive branch under President Joe Biden is not faithfully enforcing the law as required by Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution, which says he shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. It must be evident that this is not happening and that the President, through the executive branch, is not faithfully executing the law. Our nation is currently facing record numbers of illegal immigrants crossing our southern border. Inflation is at a 40-year high, tensions are rising with Russia, and we have a real potential of another war in Europe. We have an opioid epidemic where in the last year alone we've had over 100,000 people die of drug overdoses, with the vast majority coming from opioids. Our supply chain continues to have major disruptions, and we have experienced countless other crises spurred on by the current administration's failed policies. And yet we have not held a single hearing to do actual oversight of the federal government, which is the job of this committee. Oversight of the executive branch. The mission of this committee is to investigate waste, fraud, and abuse of the federal government, not to investigate the inner dealings of a private entity, regardless of how atrocious. I urge the chairwoman and chairman to concentrate this committee's energy and time to dealing with the many crises our nation is currently facing and no longer abdicate its responsibilities as it has time and time again done this past year. Thank you, and I yield back.